I'm not wearing anything Musashi.
Yeah, you look like a dork.
Yeah.
So
what are we talking about today? We are talking about carbohydrates.
my favorite macronutrient.
All the different types of carbohydrates
Yeah.
and how they can improve or
Well, firstly,
sport performance. How they relate to sport performance.
what are carbs?
Well, just quickly. If each of us were a macronutrient,
Yeah.
you'd be protein.
100%.
I'd be carbs.
I'd be fat.
And then by process of elimination, so bro.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Well,
Fuck.
Probably the leanest one here. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll be fat.
Excuse me.
you'll be keto.
Let's get our kids off.
Shirts off. Let's go.
Let's go into a pose down.
leave the cameras on.
All right. So what are carbs? Yes, there you go. They are
Well-
a macronutrient.
But what?
They are the
what-
body's primary source of energy.
But if amino acids are aminos and acids, what are carbohydrates?
Enlighten us.
Oh.
Wise one. Go.
Oh, something to do with carbs and hydrates.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's carbon,
Yeah.
and they're hydrated with water. So it's carbon and water, right? That's
So they
carbohydrate.
hold water as well, don't they?
Well, a part of the molecule is water. Yeah.
There you go.
And yeah, they have a function of hydration as well.
Water carbon.
Right.
Does carbon have another name?
In
Darren's rewritten the whole
Car-
periodic
yeah.
table. He's the modern day Terrence Howard.
Yeah, but every letter is just DD.
carbon is like the base of life. Probably has another name.
I thought you said amino acids are the base of life.
Amino acids are made out of carbon as well.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Loophole for everything. don't you?
Checkmate.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah.
All right, Darren. What are the
Sorry, I'll
different?
leave.
What are the different types of carbs? that we
Well, there's three kind of major categories of carbs, right?
Oh,
should- Oh, here we go again.
Sugar.
Go then.
simple.
No.
Yes.
Take a step back. Sugar,
Yep.
starch,
Yep.
and fiber.
There you go.
Okay, I was going to say simple. Complex,
Give an
and
example
fiber.
of each. Sugar. Table sugar.
That's the easiest one. Sugar. Table
Sugar.
Lactose,
Starch.
Starch is easy. Legumes, plants, beans.
Mm-hmm.
Fiber.
And fiber.
Like oats.
Yeah.
Oats and
the
grains?
Fiber's a complicated topic, but there's a few different types of fiber. But,
It's a complicated topic.
yeah. It's, anything you basically can't digest is fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Controversial.
Your body-
well,
body
there's
doesn't-
non-digestible fiber, there's digestible fiber,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And the differences between the three.
yeah. So, we won't really go down to that level yet.
No,
but
you can do a quick one, which is surely to do with how they're absorbed.
we'll
and how
do a
they're-
chemistry lesson. How about that?
Okay.
Go on, you're good at that.
So, we just talked that carbon and hydrogen mix.
Hydrogen.
Carbon and water mix a carbohydrate, right?
Yep.
So a simple carbohydrate is just
One of each.
that's glucose, right?
Yep.
One carbon attached to this group of water, right? That's a simple carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
The simplest form of carbohydrate is called a monosaccharide, right? It's just like one unit, let's call it a unit. And that's pretty much your simple sugars, right? So
Glucose.
glucose, fructose, galactose. That's the three.
I like galactose.
Yeah.
Sounds interdimensional.
Sounds intergalactic.
Yeah.
Where does sucrose sit?
So beyond monosaccharides, which is one unit, then you expand to 2 units, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sucrose,
Duo.
disaccharides. Close.
Yeah, nice.
Close. So sucrose is actually glucose plus fructose combined. Right?
Look, Hal, you've just lost Hal.
What's the difference between
He's
glucose
gone
and
into full
fructose?
Joe Biden mode then.
Who?
Joe Biden mode. You stared off into the galactose.
Yeah, call me the Roomba.
The difference between glucose and fructose is how carbon is attached to these hydrogens, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still just one unit. Whereas you combine them into 2 units, that's how you get sucrose. If you combine galactose and glucose, you get lactose, which is milk sugar,
Yeah,
right?
right.
If you combine 2 glucoses together, you get maltose, which is malt sugar, like barley sugar and stuff, right?
Mm.
Okay.
So anyway, that's a small chemistry lesson.
Fuck me, put me to
But
sleep.
Yeah.
what if you have? Okay.
And all our listeners.
Apologies.
Okay, if you have from 2 to 10 units of these simple, saccharides, called oligosaccharides, right?
Yeah.
What? How many points does a hexagon have, Ross?
Shut up.
Call back from last episode.
Yeah. So this oligosaccharide, 2 to 10 units, that's maltodextrin, right? And maltodextrin is this, thing that you see in a lot of sports supplements and a lot of flavors, and it's in a lot of processed food, to be honest.
Probably the most commonly used carbohydrate source in mass gaining protein powders.
And that's
you can buy it separately, maltodextrin.
That's a high sugar carb, is it?
No. The
Maltodextrin.
maltodextrin is, you can get it different, what they call dextrose equivalents, which is like the length of the chain, right? From 2 to 10. And you can vary the percentage of sugar in there. Now, one level above that, say anything above 10 units.
Is that highly branched?
No, that's called a polysaccharide, right?
Okay.
A polysaccharide.
Gee, okay.
And this is what you are referring to as a complex carbohydrate.
Okay, cool.
Right? It's got many, many units. And, polysaccharides are things like starch, cellulose, pectin, these kind of stuff. And these things take a bit longer to digest, right?
So is it the length of the
Chain.
the chain that's determining the digestion rate?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what it often does, but there's other factors as well, right?
Is it literally as simple as that? Is the longer it is, there's more of it, and therefore it requires more
longer to
energy
break
or
down.
more of a process to break down?
Yeah, so there's an enzyme in your stomach that snips, in between these units, and that's how you absorb. The most simplest unit being glucose, right?
In Hal's brain, he's picturing like this little thing with a pair of scissors literally snipping it.
I appreciate you dumbing it down.
Yeah. Oh, I just ate a pair of scissors last week. So, basically, like, you think of complex carbs, like, these are generally like more unprocessed kind of foods, fruits and stuff like that, right? But fruits, have a combination of fibers and sugars and things.
So, all the different types of carbs and sugars, like how do people know which ones are right? Like are certain types of carbs right for different situations and others for others? You know what I mean? Like, are you looking more simple carbs around training and game time? Are you looking for more starchy carbs at certain times? So
Yeah, let's get back to sports.
Yeah. So now that we kind of laid the foundation, now we can talk about them in a bit more detail. But there's no one-size-fits-all approach, right? Of
course.
But, if you remember the principle that we talked about, simple sugars, they tend to digest and give you energy a bit faster. A consequence is when you get energy faster, you tend to crash a bit faster as well.
Does that depend on the amount of those that you're actually eating?
It depends on the amount, and it depends on, how they affect your insulin levels as well. And it depends on the individual because, some people can handle a lot of carbs. Diabetics, for example, can't handle much.
No, people with more muscle mass can handle a lot more carbs.
Exactly.
But if you're having big dumps of simple carbohydrates, it will create that insulin response, right?
Yep, in general. And then that's why a lot of people prefer to fuel themselves with complex carbohydrates, right? Gives you this more gradual energy, as you need it.
Which is why you'd rather have oats, pasta, maybe even bread instead of lollies and soft drinks.
A lot of those are actually,
Well,
depending on the person. I've heard people, two trains of thought, right? I love the complex carbs, the one that take longer. I feel more sustained energy.
yeah.
Then other people say, I'm finding it hard to break all those down. I feel full and sluggish. I haven't. So for me,
Timing's important.
definitely like simple carbohydrates, smaller doses more frequently work better for me rather than having a big dose of a complex carb.
Yeah,
So there's different ways.
Yeah.
to
I
look at
prefer
it.
complex carbs, but also to your point, in smaller amounts throughout the day.
But yeah, remember, like
snacking.
we just talked about, complex carbs take a while for your body to digest. So, if you have a big complex carb meal just before you run on the field, your body's going to be digesting all of this, and you're not really going to be.
But if you get used to having it 2, 3, 4 hours beforehand, it gives your body time to digest.
Yeah.
It's more appropriate.
Yeah, that's right. But then, if you want an instant energy hit, maybe sugars and lollies and things aren't that bad, right? But just remember that it's going to come with that crash.
Yeah. Very fleeting energy.
Exactly. So, all carbs have their place when it comes to fueling performance. But the question is, how much carbs should you eat? And that's probably the number one question.
Isn't it how many?
I think it's how much.
It's a plural.
But it's, the answer's in
I have to
grams.
listen to
The answer's in grams.
grammar police all day.
So,
How much / many
I've
should
been
we
called
be
worse.
eating?
So the rule of thumb for an athlete is you want up to about 5 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Really?
Per day.
Per day, which is quite a lot. That's like 500, 400 kilo athlete.
Protein is 2 to 3. So you should be consuming almost twice as many carbs as protein throughout the day.
So that means I'd be consuming 450 grams of carbs a day based on around 90 kilos. I'm a bit less, but that's a lot of carb. If I was to eat that, I could, and just me, sample of one, I would definitely put on body fat.
Yeah. But remember,
he said athlete, bro.
It depends. It depends what you're doing, right?
A lot.
And the lower end of that is probably about 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day,
Right.
which is probably similar to what you guys are eating, I would say.
I definitely eat closer to 5 times my body weight.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, but I'm doing heaps of cardio.
I'm down on the 2. I operate better off less carbs.
Yeah, see, for me, because I focus on protein, like I tend to not have too much space.
Yeah, well,
left
that
a
fits
lot
the
of
kind
carbs.
of exercise that you do.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Why do you need these carbs now? Like, can't you just eat protein or just eat fat?
Yeah, I can't just have 7
Well,
protein
you can.
shakes a day
You
and
can just
nothing
eat
else.
protein and fat.
You can, but there's going to be a trade-off. Like we talked about many times, you have energy systems in your body, right? So you have your aerobic system, which is all about oxygen, using oxygen for energy, and this is pretty much any exercise above a couple of minutes long. Before you start using your aerobic, which is lower intensity, longer endurance, you tend to be using anaerobic, right? And this anaerobic system is what primarily relies on carbs as a fuel source.
Really? I would have thought it was the other way around. I would have thought it'd be like the longer form energy system requires carbs for fuel.
No, that's lower intensity,
Yeah, exactly.
right? For anything medium to higher intensity, you're going to be, say
Low
anything
carbs.
less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You're going to be using a lot of carbs for energy.
Because it's a higher intensity exercise or whatever it is. So your body is going for its preferred source of energy for that higher intensity, the thing that's most available, and it's going to serve that purpose.
Gotcha.
Whereas you're going on a long walk, your body might shift between fat and carbs as an energy
I'm
source.
thinking more of like a longer run.
Yeah, but remember, like we talked about, and remember the third energy system is your creatine phosphagen
which is
system, which is
obviously
anything
similar.
sprinting and all that. So you're shifting through these systems like you shift gears in a car.
Of course.
Right.
Especially when you're playing a team sport.
Yeah.
Your sport, you'd be going through all 3 energy
Of course,
systems.
but I'm thinking someone
Basketball.
who's like running at a consistent pace. If you're running a marathon, I don't know. I just assume that they'd be relying almost entirely on carbs.
What if they've got a hill climb? What if they've got a sprint to the finish?
Just imagine.
But
yeah,
that's a marathon. They're not just running on a flat, straight road. There's ups and downs.
No, but
peaks
and
valleys.
it's not black and white, right? Like your body uses
All for all.
all of your
Yeah.
systems, for various activities. And what if the carbs in your body, what might start off being anaerobic, once you deplete all of your glycogen and things, you might end up, burning, carbs and fat
So
under oxygen,
or protein.
under aerobic metabolism. Yeah.
So just quickly,
protein.
what fuels that longer form exercise? Is that like your B vitamins, your electrolytes?
Well, they're involved in that system, but what fuels it is fat and carbs, primarily fat that gets oxidized. Yes.
That's interesting. There you go.
Yeah. It's a process called oxidative phosphorylation. You learn it in early days in biochemistry. Anyway.
So as far as sports and people in the gym that want, muscle mass is important to them, describe the relation between carbs and muscle mass, because I think a lot of people, attribute protein to gaining muscle, but carbohydrates play an indirect role.
Yeah, carbs have a muscle preserving effect, right? Like once you're out of glycogen and you're doing this anaerobic activity, you're gonna have to, your body's gonna start being catabolic and breaking down other tissues to supply glucose, which is blood sugar. And one thing that your body can do is convert protein into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. And basically, if you're completely underfueled and you're completely working out under these in this situation, you might be breaking down muscles.
Does that mean,
especially with high intensity weight training
that's what I'm
sessions?
thinking,
Like that's why the golden rule of 45 minutes to an hour for a fairly moderate to high intensity weight training
because
session.
otherwise you start breaking down muscle.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's what you see these guys in the gym for 2 hours at a time. I think very different for powerlifting. Let's just eliminate that because you're having very long breaks and you're not using as many carbs. But for like a bodybuilding high volume workout, you're going beyond, that level of an hour or whatever it may be. It's different for every individual. Then you will start breaking down muscle tissue.
And if you're looking to put on muscle mass, generally the idea is to have a decent amount of carbs in your diet because the last thing you want to do is break down the muscle, for fueling yourself because you want to be building muscle.
Yeah.
And, a consequence of this is a lot of people, when they try to put on muscle mass, they put on a little bit of fat because you're having so much extra carbs and calories in your diet.
True. Do you have a
the bulk.
Nice. Do you have a segue to HBCDs?
Yeah, we can talk about that in a second. But I guess the other thing that I wanted to talk about was, sports and endurance and how much carbs should you have, right? We talked about, this general...
Is that not just personal preference?
It is personal preference, but also there's a rule of thumb that you need about 60 grams of carbs per hour
Of exercise.
right?
And
For most sports.
But that changes based on your weight, doesn't it? Or is that...
Yeah, it is relative, but this is just a rule of thumb, right?
So now a game of footy, roughly,
Yeah.
you want to make sure you've consumed at least 60 grams of carbohydrates
Within what period of time?
and
to-
digested those carbohydrates
Yeah.
before you play.
Yeah. So remember, what happens to carbohydrates when you eat them is they become glucose in your blood, right? Eventually. So you store some as glycogen, which is glycogen is the stored form of carbohydrates, right? So and some will go directly into your bloodstream as glucose, right? So once you're out of the glucose in your blood, your body wants to produce more. That's when it starts to break down glycogen, right? Glycogen is like the store of glucose. So then once you break down glycogen, once you're empty of glycogen, you need to replenish that. So one way to quickly replenish that is to take carbohydrates during training. During, which is why you see, people refueling during a game.
Can you give us an idea?
Simple carbohydrates to refuel during the game.
Yes.
But just quickly, when you say 60 grams, and obviously prior to exercise, is there a time frame of within what period of time? Like within 6 hours, obviously means you probably lose that energy doing one thing or another.
Well, I'm more talking about how much you're kind of using in a typical sport rather than how much to consume, right? Like, consumption is very individual. Like some people can have
so you're saying
complex carbs, and some people can have, a drink just before training.
So you're essentially utilizing 60 grams of carbs during an hour sport.
Rough guide.
That's what you're
It's
saying.
a rough guide. Like this,
of course.
Yeah.
I thought
But
you were
bear
saying
in-
the
bear in
recommendation
mind-
is to consume 60 grams of carbs beforehand.
Bear in mind, your body stores a lot more than 60 grams.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But for what period of time? Because if I have enough, if I have a meal, let's say I have a bowl of pasta and a banana or whatever else, 3 hours before a game, perfect. If I have that 6 hours before a game, I'm starving and out of energy.
You might need a little top up of some simple carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, tell me what happens. Look, I know the answer to this, but tell me what happens if you consume too many carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Well, that
Right answer.
But
you'll end up storing any excess carbohydrates as typically, some body fat. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like you just excrete it. Your body will convert it into like a triglyceride and store it as fat.
Exactly. So,
So that's why I think carbohydrate balance in your diet is probably the hardest thing to figure out. I think like proteins are consistent, right? You roughly know how much protein you need per kilogram of body weight, and you just space it out throughout the day. Carbohydrate can be different daily depending on what activity you're doing. If you've got a high activity day, you want to be consuming more carbohydrates that day. If you've got a full complete rest day, you might not need the amount of carbohydrates you've had on the high activity day. So that's always the thing that you can manipulate.
And you can, I guess it is fairly easy once you've gotten used to it. You can kind of tell whether you think I should have had more carbs before.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trial and error.
I didn't need that. Yeah, 100%. You just kind of get used to your own process.
Yeah, well, and I find everyone utilizes different types of carbs differently. Like,
yeah, people respond differently to carbs. People have different, glucose sensitivity, insulin sensitivity, things like that. I was actually part of a study once.
Congratulations!
I was a participant. I was a participant in the study, and
guinea pig. How long did they make it?
It was a low carb study. So I was on a low carb diet for 8 weeks, and then they measured how low carb diet would affect my strength, performance, and body composition. Right.
And how grumpy it made you as well.
Yeah, I was grumpy, but they didn't measure that. I just wanted to eat some chips. Basically, after 8 weeks, not everybody's going to have this opportunity to measure their, carbohydrate response in a controlled environment. But I was fortunate enough to do this, and after 8 weeks, my strength didn't change, right?
Didn't improve though.
It didn't improve, so it stayed pretty consistent. We were testing 1 rep max and 3 rep maxes, but my body fat did decrease.
Mm-hmm.
So
and your overall body weight decreased, obviously.
A slight decrease in body weight, yeah. So
and you maintained muscle mass and strength.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's strength and power. Did this do something similar to do with endurance? Because I imagine that would have a far significant effect.
This is a strength and power study. So they specifically tested powerlifters and Olympic weightlifters.
And that result could be different if they extended that to like a 16-week study rather than 8 weeks.
Potentially, yeah. And
as your body fat's decreasing, your body weight's decreasing, you are going to get weaker.
Yes. And yeah, that's what most people see, right?
So an 8-week study, I think that's probably about the limit before you would start to see some drop-offs if you continued that study.
And I was on about 50 to 60 grams a day of carbs, which is pretty low, but not super low because, some people get well below that.
But that's also not incredibly applicable to like a sports person who's doing a lot of cardio, a lot of running. Because that's, in my mind, that's where carbohydrates show their value.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, even in sports, right, like carbs are just, one element of it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, highly branched cyclic dextrin.
Yeah. So, what is HBCDs? A lot of people have heard about them, and we're actually using them in one of our new products, the Sport Hydration Energy Water.
We'll plug it. Don't worry.
Yeah. So
Sport Hydration Energy Water.
Yeah.
With electrolytes.
Yeah.
Creatine, B vitamins,
and HBCD. Also known as sus carb.
Sus carb TM.
So sus.
So, what is HBCD? But basically, you talked about monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, polysaccharides. HBCD is imagined like a polysaccharide, but it's cyclic, right?
Yep.
So instead of a long chain, it's a chain that's attached at the end, right?
How are those enzymes going to cut that with the scissors, hey?
Yeah. Oh, no, that's where the rock comes into play.
Well, actually, it's paper. But basically, basically, you when you consume an HBCD, it's kind of the best of both worlds because it gets through your system really fast, like a sugar, but it doesn't give you this insulin response like a sugar would. So it won't not necessarily give you the crash.
So it's a low sugar form of carbohydrates that actually is absorbed and digested rapidly.
Yes.
Right.
So it's in theory it's the best of both worlds, right?
So these types of carbs, are they alive in nature in food right now, or is it a supplement only?
They're actually man-made, right? And they make them using a special enzyme that causes this cyclical.
What does that actually mean?
So what's the benefit of this type of carbohydrate?
The benefit
over
is
others.
Sugars are great, right? Sugars are a great fuel, but a lot of people find that it just gives them a crash, and sometimes it gives them some gastrointestinal upsets when they consume too much.
So it can be like a brief form of energy.
So that's the last thing you want before you go to sport.
Exactly. So imagine if you could have the best of the best of sugar without the crash and without the GI upset because it's passing through your stomach really quickly. It's kind of like, so
like the absorption of sugar, but like the duration of a more complex form of carb.
Exactly. So Yeah, that's pretty much what it
So that's
delivers.
why we've chosen this type of carb for that sport hydration product.
Yeah, and if you look at it, it kind of feels like a starch when you shake it into water and stuff. But it's your body kind of treats it more almost like a sugar. So it's really cool stuff. And if any of you've been using it, you've kind of seen that it gives you a bit of an extra energy lift in
I
when you're
100%
training.
love it. Yeah. It's like it's
I've been using it before and after.
Really?
Yep. Half serve before, half serve after.
Yeah.
With protein after.
Yeah, I find it helps.
Remember the old days? You'd do that with the protein in the carb. You'd use that type. You can buy that type of carb individually.
What do you mean the old days?
Still now, but
yeah.
It's pretty ideal.
But yeah, so I actually think it helps you a lot in your intra-set recovery. So even during sports, you sip on it. It helps you that short-term recovery to keep you going a little bit better because it's replenishing your energy really quickly.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan.
I'm a huge fan. That product is probably our newest product. It's phenomenal. It sounds like a big product plug, but such a good product. Telling you, no one really knows about it yet. It's available online, Musashi.com, also in Chemist Warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And
good product before sports, before training.
Our listeners are used to a plug anyway.
Yeah. Carbs also have a very, very important effect on hydration, but we're going to leave that for another day because we haven't talked about hydration much.
Yeah.
We'll do a hydration podcast.
Yeah.
As it gets a little warmer.
We're short on time anyway, so
yeah.
That's it. That was awesome.
Sweet.
What does my moto have?
Oh God, I was trying to get away without that today. I was like, can we?
Do you know what one of the?
Let's get this bullshit over and done with.
Let's look at the Book of Water because it feels appropriate.
The Book of Water.
We just said we're not talking about water, bro.
Yeah.
Listen.
Where's the Book of Carbs?
Okay.
What did Miyamoto eat?
Even when you step forward, backward, or sideways with one foot, the other foot is not considered to be apart from the whole.
No, nothing to do
so,
with it.
I get it. It relates.
Yeah, so even if you take a step forward with one foot, even if you're having simple sugars, make sure you also include some complex carbs in your diet. You don't really need simple sugars unless you're fueling your...
the only time you need simple sugars is around any activity time, right? You want to try and avoid them the rest of the day.
Yeah, so, that makes perfect sense to me.
It was a stretch, but I'll take it.
That being said, go for a nice Musashi crisp bar over a Cadbury any day.
Yeah, well, you don't get all the sugar, do you?
Well, one is protein, but anyway.
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Also check out...
I thought you liked protein.
Also check out our protein energy bar, which is a good source of complex carbohydrates.
True. Real oats.
If anyone wants to learn more about Sus Carb, we've got a whole heap of information about Sus Carb on our website.
Musashi.com.
Musashi.com on the product page, Sport Hydration.
Easy to find.
So it's a very interesting source of carbohydrates that is sort of very revolutionary in this space. So
First.
Jump on and have a look.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Thanks for coming to our chemistry lesson.
Yeah, next time bring a Bunsen burner or something, make it more exciting, can you?
100%. Yeah, honestly. I'm going to bring a pillow.
Yeah.
No, that's chemistry's exciting.
Yeah. Come on.
All right.
Until next time.
Musashi out.
Bye.